Thank you for watching the World Community Magazine's Hour of Power Live on Facebook with your host Edward McQueen and April Garner Davis.
And good evening to our viewers. Good evening to you, April. How are you doing?
I'm good, Brother Edward. How are you doing?
Good. Everybody can hope we're not having any technical problems. So I hope everybody can hear me.
I hear a little feedback. Not sure what it is.
Feedback.
Yeah, is it you got your thing hanging across your shoulder right there? Your earpiece? Maybe it's picking up from that?
Yeah, but it's not that.
Okay, now I don't hear you at all. Brother Edward, you talked it up. Okay, reconnect whatever you unplugged, because I can't hear you at all. Nope.
Yes, you can. You can hear me now.
I can hear you now. Yep.
Yeah, absolutely. Sorry about that, our viewers. Good evening, anyway, and of course, co-host Ms. April Garner Davis. April, that issue on redistricting. It seems like there's a knowledge base there that people need to have to know exactly what we're talking about when politicians talk about redistricting, especially for South Carolina, because of the recent event that just took place that was really critical, and everybody had their fingers crossed, and certain things to happen so that we can retain our little bit of power that we have. But anyway, but here with us this evening to talk about that. WCM Magazine was fortunate enough to get a hold of one of our senators, Senator Ronnie Sabb of District 32 in South Carolina, and here to discuss all that had to be done and the efforts that were put forth with all of our representatives to kind of combat what this redistricting, the potential that it had, and the impact, which if it turned out a different way, it would not have been good. So, without further ado, and we got an hour to do this. Without further ado, let's bring on Senator Ronnie Sabb. And Senator, how are you doing? Senator Sabb.
Looks like the screen is frozen. Okay, now you're.
Okay, now I can hear you.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
So how are you doing this
Now I
evening,
can.
Senator Sabb?
So good. Okay, we're good. We're all good now. Okay.
Can you hear us, Senator Sabb?
Sorry, I still can't hear.
Okay, we can hear you. We can hear you, but you can't hear us. Okay, I'm going to ask you to, let's see. Brother Edward, let me send him a message in the back. Brother Edward, you talked about these technical.
Senator Sabb, at the bottom. Let me see if I can get you.
I'll ask him to leave the studio and then come back in.
Yeah.
I don't know if did you tell? Okay.
I'm going to call you.
Send him. Okay.
Got you.
I'm going to remove him from the screen. So.
Yes, sir. So you can't hear us, Senator Sabb.
So while Brother Edward is working that out with Senator Sabb, it's really important for us to bring this type of information to you as quickly as we can and when possible, because it's important for us to understand what's happening with our right to really express our not only opinions, but to really push forth our rights when it comes down to the things that we need to be cognizant of from a political standpoint. And, everyone has a right to vote at this point. And who we're voting for, we are pretty much putting our faith in these politicians to stand up for what is right when it comes down to representation across communities. And so, of course, recently in South Carolina, there was the I call it the political tug of war that occurred. And unfortunately, it resulted in a lot of hours of going back and forth between House representatives, South Carolina state senators about redistricting. And, we really wanted to kind of open up this conversation with some definitions also so that everyone could understand what redistricting is and how it really impacts communities and the ability to be fair and equal across communities when it comes down to voter representation. So redistricting is the constitutional process of redrawing legislative and congressional district boundaries every 10 years based on census data. And one thing that comes out of even that short portion of the definition is census data. That's why it's important for us to make sure that also when it's time for the census, we're participating in the census so that this type of data is used effectively and fairly across our communities. And so we're going to get into why this was such a tug of war and the agendas behind it, but also kind of dig into the implications of what could happen if this type of thing goes on. Now, one thing to remember is that according to definition, it happens every 10 years. But the unique thing about this issue is that it happened at the commencement of an election cycle. And so that's where, all of the problems arose from the idea of redistricting when voting had already begun. So let me see if Senator Sabb is, okay, say something now. Can you hear us? Can you hear us? I don't think he can hear us, Brother Edward. I can't hear you either.
Okay, he went out and came back in as we asked him to. And
this is really, the devil is being busy because everything was fine in the beginning.
Yep, everything was fine.
And you talked about technical difficulties.
I think that's what
you did. You talked it up. I'm gonna remove.
That's okay. I think we have the senator if we have him by phone, and then let that be the audio. What do you think?
I don't think so. Yeah, because it's hard to hear him that way.
Yeah. Senator Sabb.
Yes.
All right, we'll try.
Yeah.
We'll try.
Okay, we'll stick by phone, okay? And then we'll let the volume be by phone, and then we can see you visually.
Okay. However you want to do it.
Okay.
Okay. Can't see him visually. His video is not working. I don't see him in the backstage.
Senator Sabb, got the camera on? Are you at your computer? You still at your computer?
I am. I'm on my phone.
So you were doing everything on your phone?
Correct.
Oh, so you were not at a laptop. You were doing it from your phone. Okay. Okay.
Just go ahead, continue with the interview, and we just won't have his visual.
Yeah. Okay. We certainly had your visual a few minutes. Everything was going fine. Anyway. Yeah. So as we were discussing, and I hope our audience are well in tune to this about the you coming on and getting involved with the discussion on redistricting. And I think while you were gone, April gave a good narrative and a good synopsis of redistricting and especially how it impacts South Carolina and the current redistricting that took place. And she gave a good background on it about the number of times that when it's supposed to take place and not.
Sure.
So for the audience sake, for those who I'm sure they've heard about you, okay? Otherwise, you wouldn't have been in getting reelected so many times. But can you give us just your take on how do you think the impact of redistricting and what is expected based on your feeling with your colleagues at the in state South Carolina State Senate, and what you think is going to be happening in the future, and what the community can do today, or the citizens of South Carolina can do today to make sure that redistricting doesn't have a very negative impact.
Sure, sure. So look, again, Equal, thank you for having me. I never want to presuppose that folks know who I am, so give me a moment or two to say to folks that I represent District 32, which is composed of Williamsburg County, Georgetown County, Berkeley County, Florence County, Horry County, and Charleston County. And so when we think in terms of redistricting, and I know Equal has talked about it a little bit, but let me just share with the audience real quick. So I'm sure that she shared the fact that typically there's a census every 10 years, and then following the census, the redistricting process is underway. It's important that there be a census because for the senators of the state of South Carolina, we redistricted in 2020, there were 4,600,000 South Carolinians. As senators, there are 46 of us, and so each one of us now has 100,000 people, plus or minus, that's in our district. The Judiciary Committee appoints a redistricting committee, and so back in 2020, I served on the redistricting committee. That committee was composed of 4 Republicans and 3 Democrats. We traveled throughout the state of South Carolina, 10 of the communities, where we essentially have the maps that are proposed, and we give an audience an opportunity to chime in and tell us how they feel about the proposed maps. Typically, redistricting involves what we call natural lines, like rivers and counties and towns, communities of interest, and so those are some of the guidelines that are used when it comes to drawing lines. As it relates to what we were involved in a couple of weeks or so ago, there was none of that. Essentially, Washington sent a map down and said, I want you all to adopt it. The House of Representatives quickly jumped into action. They held one committee meeting, and the person that drew the lines, the one that created the map, testified before that committee. He testified for a total of 7 minutes and 40 seconds. Took no questions as it relates to what all went into the map. Besides that, or in spite of that, the House passed that redistricting map. And so it came over to the Senate. We got the map on a Thursday. And under our rules, we get to debate the measure 2 days before they can cut off the debate to what we call a cloture vote. And so in order for them to have sped up the process and not create a scenario where people were already early voting, they needed to suspend the rules. And in order to suspend the rules, they had to have 31 votes. Well, fortunately for us, we had enough votes in there that we were able to stop them from suspending the rules. Consequently, we had 2 days of debate, and then following the debate, they clotured us. But then under our rules, they got the second reading, but in order to pass the measure, they needed 3 readings. And so we needed 2 more days of debate before they could cloture us once more. And as things worked out, the day that they could cloture us was the day that early voting began. And so we encouraged South Carolinians all over the state to early vote. And it was a beautiful thing to witness because at 12 o'clock, we had over 20,000 South Carolinians that had voted already. by 1 o'clock, there were 32,600. And that sent a clear message to our friends and neighbors in the Senate that South Carolinians intended to vote based upon a redistricting map that had all of the guidelines that were followed. And so that's what we did. And so ultimately, the measure was defeated because of all of the South Carolinians that in fact cast their vote. And the other argument, I'll share this, and I'll yield to questions or, that you all might have, was the fact that we had absentee folks that had voted already. Our soldiers who were, fighting wars in their harm's way, they vote absentee. Those ballots had already been cast. There were other people that vote absentee by paper ballots. Those numbers were in, and we knew what the numbers were. And so I think the combination of the fact that the soldiers and elderly people and students who were living in other states but registered to vote in South Carolina, along with the early vote, made it clear that we would be disenfranchising voters if we were to do that. And I also think it would have been unconstitutional.
So, well explained. I really got something out of that explanation. Anyway, I got a lot. Thank you for that. But how were you all in preparing for any litigious methods in the event that it was the turnout didn't turn out the way it was this time?
We were ready on all fronts. And so one of the things that we did to delay the measure was we had a bunch of amendments. And so the bill comes to us in one form, but under our rules, we are allowed to offer amendments. And so we had three boxes of amendments that we intended to talk on for as long as we got the opportunity to talk. But in addition to that, to your point, if all else failed, we had lawyers who had already drafted lawsuits. We had litigants that were prepared to be a plaintiff in the lawsuit. And so it was fully our intent, the moment that the measure passed, to file a lawsuit and to ask the Supreme Court to put a halt to any attempts to stop the election so the election would go forward.
Sounds great. And were there any situations or times where things really got doing verbal back and forth? Did things really get contentious? I'm asking this question because I'm kind of trying to imagine what it's like. You all sitting, in that Senate chambers.
Yeah, it actually did not.
Okay.
We have certain decorum in the South Carolina Senate that we follow, and we've always believed that the institution is greater than any single issue or any single senator. And so our president is very careful to remind any senator that goes sideways of the rules that this is how the Senate operates. And so I can say of my colleagues, both those who agreed that the map ought to go forth and those who disagreed that the map should go forth, the debate was actually very respectful. We are not Washington, and we don't behave like the British do. And so the decorum of the Senate was kept throughout the entire debate. The rules were followed, and we had an orderly discussion about the merits of the bill. And unfortunately, those senators that were on the fence at some point came around in a large way where the votes were what they were. But we had folks that were there, veterans that were there, standing up for other veterans and saying, hey, look, I'm representing my brothers and sisters abroad who are in harm's way in order that we get the opportunity people in the gallery, people in the lobby, just wanting us as senators to know that they were tuned in and that they cared about what was happening in our state.
Well, that's good to hear. I was trying to envision that as you were talking. So, and that is so great to hear. Very impressive.
And I'll mention a couple other things, if you don't mind, Ed. One of the things was the map was flawed. I mean, it had the wrong kinds of precincts. It had lines where precincts were not. I mean, and so it was a flawed map. There was no input from anybody in South Carolina with regards to that map. It was literally just thrown down from Washington. And I think that what happened in Indiana, when those legislators stood up and said to the gentleman in Washington, no, this is not how we're going to do it in Indiana. And then they had their primary election, and 5 of those 7 people lost because the guy in Washington backed the 7 opponents, and only 2 of them survived. And quite frankly, I think that had a chilling effect on some of my fellow legislators, worried about whether or not they would be able to combat a primary challenge with the gentleman in Washington, endorsing their opponents. And so I think for a lot of it was a difficult decision for them to make, but many decided that they would just go with what Washington wanted done. But fortunately for us, enough of them had the fortitude to say, no, that's not how we do things in South Carolina.
Having that kind of action or resentment or combating a proposed redistricting and the action that was taken in the state of South Carolina, I think that's kind of really sends a message. Indiana, maybe, that was either here or there, but for South Carolina, which was considered so-called red state.
Well, we're the only state in the Southeast that did not follow this notion of redistricting. I mean, and I don't think anybody thought of the fact that you can just redistrict whenever you want to. You don't have to get a census. You don't have to do anything. But there's a power grab in Washington, and by any means necessary, they want to hold on to power. But I still believe that right is right and wrong is wrong. I think a lot of what's going on in our country right now is simply wrong. But I don't think Democrats had any choice because the Republicans were doing it. But I think in South Carolina, we didn't look at it as a Republican issue or a Democratic issue. It was really an issue of what is right and what's wrong.
When you say we, well, obviously somebody thought it was something between the two parties because somebody one party stood to gain significantly with the redistricting had it gone their way.
Yeah, you're right. But I mean, in the end analysis, the vote was there were 14 Republicans that voted against it, and all 12 Democrats voted against it. So, but there were 26 of us that believed that it was the wrong thing to do.
Yeah, that clears up a lot. That clears up a lot. And that's I think that's impressive for the state of South Carolina. I think it's I don't know what holds for the future or how it's going to impact the future or the next time the issue comes up of redistricting. Can you kind of elaborate on that? What the future holds and what you think the future holds?
Yeah, so I would not be surprised if we don't see redistricting efforts in the near future. The reality is the landscape with voting, with drawing maps has changed dramatically. There were 2 Supreme Court cases. One case came out of South Carolina. When we drew the maps the last time, there were challenges to that map because of how they gerrymandered Charleston. It would essentially give Congress that were more likely to vote in her favor, because you may recall she had the seat, and then Joe Cunningham, Democrat, was able to win an election, and then they redrew the maps, and then she won again, and she won based upon the gerrymandering of that district. But the Supreme Court held that it's okay to politically gerrymander. And so the fact that they were doing it, cutting out folks who were likely to vote Democrat and cutting in folks that were likely to vote Republican, the Supreme Court said that's fine. And then they came back later on in the case and said, okay, it's okay to do it politically, but you can't do it based on race. And so there was a time prior to that decision where there were what we call majority-minority districts. And that made certain that there was some minority representation in Congress. And that was pursuant to the Voters' Rights Act. And so when they came up with this notion of declaring it unconstitutional to have majority-minority districts, that's a game changer. That essentially guts the Voters' Rights Act. You might as well toss it in the trash can.
Yeah.
It is no longer the order of the day. And so we've got to react to that. And the way we react to that is they can take away the Voters' Rights Act, but they can't take away our right to vote. And so what I'm hopeful of is that more people will decide, look, I've got to be a part of this process. I've got to be a part of this democracy. We have more folks that don't vote than we have that actually vote. But we are seeing record numbers. I mean, there were over 110,000 early voters in the first week. I mean, we had 56,000 the first day. It was like 39,000 the second day, 29,000 the third day. All of those days were records in terms of the amount of people that were voting. And quite frankly, the vast majority of them were Democrats. And so I think a lot of Democrats got the message that they have got to participate in this process. Otherwise, they'll simply change the rules and just stay in power just for the sake of being in power. I'm one of these folks that believe that all voices matter and that diversity continues to be our strength. We need women, we need persons of color, we need, everybody needs to be a part of the body, needs to be reflective of the state.
Right.
But I'm worried that there'll be those who are so interested in power that they'll just do it because they can. And my grandmother told me years ago, she said, son, just because you can do something doesn't mean you ought to do it.
Yeah. Well taken. Some of our comments are coming in. They're showing their appreciation to you and all of the legislators, representatives of South Carolina, that had a lot to do with the outcome that we just had, and they're proud of that. So,
but it was a proud moment, and have people tune in and really pay attention to the body of work was enlightening and inspiring for us all. But I just hope that energy, we don't allow it to fade, because if it fades, what happens in November has all kinds of consequences, not just for our state, but for our nation and, in fact, the world. And so if folks get with this idea that somebody is so hungry for power that they would just change the rules and do whatever they can in order to maintain power, then you've got to know that that person intends to use that power in the same way that they change the rules, disregarding so many folks just to have their way. And that's not the American way. That's not the South Carolina way. So I'm just hopeful that people not only paid attention to what was happening there, but pay attention to the fact that if power stays where it is, that it will be problematic going forward, because there's an intentional disregard for so many. And I think we know that power corrupts, and absolute power corrupts absolutely. And so we literally have to change the power structure in Washington, or I fear the path that we'll ultimately go down.
So April, you can come in whenever you want. I don't want to be asking all the questions for Senator Sabb.
I think you're doing a good job. You can continue.
That's doing a good job. Okay. Yeah. Well, Senator, I saw a moment of I think he did express it, but Congressman Clyburn said he was a little disappointed in some of the action that some people had chosen to do or say, and I don't know if he elaborated, but it sounds like he thought he had some friends in the the chambers, and it turned out he didn't have friends.
Well, I think that some were surprised because the governor had indicated that he would not call us back. And so when no action was taken in session, I think there were a lot of us that believed that it was over. But immediately we were called back into session. And I saw a tweet by the gentleman in Washington where a certain candidate was endorsed. And it also indicated that individual that received the endorsement was going to be choosing a running mate that just happens to be related to the governor. And so you worry about the politics of that moment. And so I think some of us were disappointed with the fact that we were called back. But from all indication, the congressman was very pleased with the manner in which we fought. And by the way, one of the powerful tools that we had to fight with is Congressman Clyburn and his record. Everybody knows the impact, well, I shouldn't say everybody, but a lot of us know the impact that Jim Clyburn has had on the state of South Carolina. He didn't just work for the 6th District. There's so many things that have his footprint on it all throughout the state. I mean, when you look at broadband, everybody in the state of South Carolina is going to get broadband. A lot of that has to do with the rescue plan that he and President Biden ushered in. I mean, there were no Republican legislators that supported that plan. But South Carolina got more than $2 billion, some of which went towards broadband. And so Congressman Clyburn's record speaks for itself, and he's an international figure. And so it was easy for us to talk about his impact. And for them to, in the middle of the street, after campaigning was going on, after people had said that they're running for office and all that, in the middle of that, to change all the rules and stuff, just to take this very effective legislator out of his seat, a lot of people just believe that was simply wrong.
Yeah. It would have been a bad economic move entirely.
Absolutely.
Yeah, I mean, that's without saying. And I hope we have more representatives like that. And of course, you can only get so many on congressional level and senatorial. I mean, for national senate, Senate of the U.S. Yeah. So, well, look, you've given us some good information regarding what it was and the role that you all had to play. So in essence, you were urging everybody to win by voting, and I'm glad you got that point across. That's very important. How can the structure be improved so that we make sure that our votes are being heard, our votes are being gone to places where we want them to go. Do you see any fallacies in that right now, or just improvements that's been looking at for years?
I have full confidence in our election structure. Nothing is perfect,
Right.
but I have full confidence that we've got technology and everything in place that enhances the probability of every vote being counted in the manner in which it was cast. We've got incredible people that work the polls every year. A lot of them are not paid their worth, but they come out because they believe in this democracy. And so I voted first thing Tuesday morning because, of course, we only had a 4-day week because of Veterans Day. And we almost was working on Veterans Day. Fortunately, we were able to manage and not have to go in on that Sunday, although we went in on that Saturday. But when I went into the polls, I mean, I was greeted with smiles. The line was already long. People were kind. They knew I had to get to Columbia, and so they allowed me to go ahead of them, which I really sincerely appreciated. But I appreciate the mood. I mean, the mood was very positive in spite of what was going on.
Yeah.
Folks were really happy to be able to exercise their right to vote, and I believe that's the spirit. That's the thing that we've got to do. If our numbers are not huge this time, I worry. But if our numbers are huge, if we shatter the records the way that we're doing right now, it'll send a message, and it'll reverberate not only throughout South Carolina, it'll reverberate in Washington and through the other states. And so I'm hopeful. I'm cautiously optimistic, I guess I should say, that we will continue to vote in large numbers. And so I continue to tell folks, thank you for voting. Thank you for making the calls to your friends and neighbors. But the work is not over. We've all got to take ownership of this upcoming election. Not only the primary, but in November. And so we've got to come back out in large numbers. We've got to organize, we've got to mobilize. We've got to do what is required of us to make sure that we don't have a legislature that is not reflective of the people. And so that's really the key. And everybody has an opportunity to play their role and tell about it.
So as soon as I heard the results, I kind of envisioned Representative Clyburn going back to Washington and not being a superhero, but people wanted to ask him questions on how did that happen in the state of South Carolina?
Yeah.
You know.
Well, he loves our state, and in his most recent book, he talks about the fact that there were a number of House of Representative members before him. I've forgotten what number he is. So there was 95 years in between them and him, and he talks about those kinds of things in his book. And you know, to read his books, you know how proud he is of South Carolina, in that it's still a place where somebody can be poor and make it. I tell the story from time to time that I came from the outhouse to the state house. And of course, young folks don't know what I'm talking about, but the older folks know and they appreciate it. And so there are so many things that we have to fight for. Everybody, you know, is entitled to a quality education, but you know, if we're not careful, only the rich will be able to afford it, and the average person will not. And so there are so many key issues out there, and if we don't have minority voices in those bodies, I will just tell you that voice becomes solid. We cannot sit idle and allow that to happen.
So I'm kind of behind the eight ball sometimes myself. Now, this may sound like I'm really naive about the civics here, but you are District 32, but how many districts are there in South Carolina?
Sure. Oh, in the Senate, there are 46.
Okay.
And there's 124. And so the 124 members in the House of Representatives, each one of them have a district. There are 46 senators. Each of them have a district. And so there's a total of 170 legislators in all.
That's interesting. Yeah. I can see the magnitude of the task they're trying to get everybody to unite from one party to have successful legislation passed. And I'm sure you had your issues with other colleagues on that. Notwithstanding the fact that, like you said, the core or the quorum is usually non-contentious, right? The way that the forum, yours forum is set up.
Now don't get me wrong, we have our intellectual discussions, and they're pretty passionate, but they're respectful. And so there is nothing wrong with the passion that we bring to issues. And so you see it front and center there. And so you might see a spirited debate, but what you won't hear is you won't hear one person calling the other person out of their name. People refer to me as a senator from Williamsburg, then there's a senator from Georgetown, a senator from Maureen. They don't typically refer to me by name. And so that's a part of the Senate decorum. And so if you hear somebody calling somebody, they'll say, well, the senator from Williamsburg, but not, that fella, and all of the names that can be, that someone can be called. So there's spirited debates. And this was a spirited debate, but it was respectful. And I was proud, quite frankly, of the way that our colleagues performed. We did a press conference following it to answer any questions that anybody had. And one of the things that was pointed out is we've got like 4 freshmen Democratic senators, and they performed extraordinarily. And so many of us was proud of how ready they were for the national stage.
Yeah, that's something to be proud of. It's just one thing that seems to be missing throughout our nation is that we don't put a more value on our future replacement when we get office that impacts our people.
Yeah, that is so important. Some refer to it as succession planning, and I do believe that it's our responsibility to pour into others and to teach and not to guard our knowledge jealously, but to share it freely.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, we all need about business of doing that.
Do you find that? But you don't find that difficult to do, right? I mean, especially in cases like that. Do you seem to think that there are candidates galore, or are they just far and few and in between?
Every day is, I'm inspired by what I see in our young people.
Okay.
At some point, we'll turn the world over to them, and I believe that the world's going to be in good hands. One of the things that I continue to focus on, and when I got my start, someone told me I would not be a lawyer today, but for the fact that I had help. And so I remember asking a young lady who was very, I say young, she was substantially older than I was, but she helped me get my start. And I asked her, what can I do for you? I'm doing okay okay now. She looked at me with a smile and she said, help somebody else. And so I've been trying to pay that debt, and I'll be trying to pay it for the rest of my life. Just being committed to trying to help somebody else, and especially when it comes to somebody wanting to become a lawyer, I just feel like it's my duty, my responsibility to pour into them as best I can and help them along the way. And so I see that not only in me, but in so many others. And we've got an exciting generation that's coming behind us. Of course, they will see a very different world than the world we see. I mean, AI will be there, and hopefully they will put it to good use. It's an extraordinary tool. It can be extraordinarily beneficial, but needs to be used in the right way. But I believe that God will prepare and equip them to take advantage of what's available and to use it for the betterment of mankind. So I have no fear, no concerns as it relates to the future. I think the future will be in good hands.
Well, yeah, that's good to hear. I'm just hopeful that AI doesn't really take their place. Probably.
Yeah, I don't think it can.
Yeah.
We might do the job, but
Yeah.
there'll be other jobs to be. So there will be a need and a use for mankind, I think, by eternity.
Yeah, I kind of get that feeling myself. So, but anyway, I get, one of the reasons, Senator Sabb, that we really wanted you on the come on the program was to say things like you just said, and to let the people know that what it took, for a collective effort, especially some of our representatives, to have a turnout or an outcome like the redistricting of outcome. And a lot of us fail to realize, sometimes what it takes, stuff like that. You got to give and take. You start trying to get things for your district and so forth, and for the people. Now, but there's one issue, and I don't want this to verge on your campaign or anything, but do you think redistricting would have had any kind of impact on healthcare for the citizens of South Carolina?
Absolutely. Healthcare, education. I mean, you name it. The reality is, folks make decisions. I mean, and those decisions become law. Folks vote on budgets, and somebody once said, if you want to know where my priorities are, look at my budget. And so everything from feeding children to sheltering the elderly, all of those things are decisions that are made by the body politic. I mean, recently we've seen where funding for the elderly was cut. I mean, that's a Washington decision. They decide how much money goes to these vital aging groups. They decide how much money goes to these to the EEOC and all of these various things. Guatemala Council of Government. All of those things are funded, and they're funded federally, and they're funded on the state level. And so, who is in office makes a difference. Leadership matters, and so if you want to elect bad leaders, then you're going to get bad outcomes. But you need to elect people who have a servant's heart, who care about others, and believe that government ought to work for the people and not the people just working for the government. I mean, everybody's paying taxes. I said to one of my friends who believes that we should be changing all these maps and stuff, I said, man, look, years ago, the revolt in America was taxation without representation. And so what you all are telling me is that I got to pay my taxes, but I don't get to make decisions about what happens with the money. People who believe, as I believe, don't get to make the what happens with the money. Only one ideology is the prevailing one that's up there. That's not right. I feel like I'm paying taxes, but there's no representation. And so this whole notion of taxation equals representation is what we ought to be about. I just don't believe that we can afford to stand idle and watch us go back. Watch us go back in time. People are asking me about the gutting of the Voters' Rights Act, and what do I think? What do I think the poll is going to come back? I said, well, not if we do what we're supposed to do. And so we still have an opportunity because we still have the right to vote. And so we've got to assert those rights. I refuse to sit on the sideline and watch my grandchildren have a future that offers less than my future offered when I was their age. And so I think we've got a responsibility to those generations that are coming after us to fight the good fight with all the fiber that's a part of our existence. And so, but we got to fight it on the high intellectual plane. We can't pick up arms and all of those kinds of things. That's not the way to do it. Violence is not the answer. We've got to do it with our intellect. We've got to do it with our work ethics. And more importantly, we've got to do it by voting. Our power.
Yeah, we're certainly capable of doing that. Okay, it's just need to stir things up. Okay, or more than that. Look, I'm not left in complete awe about all your narratives on and definitions and current analysis of redistricting, but I just got to say that I'm certainly glad you came on the program to kind of further elaborate on what we're facing as voters, and I guess in a way you're still saying that voting is the most important thing to really have outcomes like that. I'm glad you put that forth.
It really did understate that, but beyond voting is engagement.
Yeah.
I'm supposed to vote, but I'm also to stay engaged because accountability matters. And the other thing that is important about people and being engaged is no one man has a monopoly on good ideas. A lot of good ideas that I have are not mine by origin. They are seeds that folks planted within me, issues that folks encourage me and advocate for. We are stronger together. And so I want folks to vote, but I also want to stay engaged. And I'd be remiss if I didn't thank you, April, and others out there that go out of your way to try to provide good information that empowers people, and the information is so powerful. And so thank you for what you do.
Well, that's what we are. We're community broadcasting, and we like to have outcomes that are favorable to our community, and we do what we can from an informational standpoint, like getting people like yourself to come and elaborate on things that that maybe or obviously that a lot of our citizens don't know about, but they need to know in order to make an informed decision, about voting and stuff like that.
Well, I promise if you invite me back again next time, I won't bring the camera, and we'll be able to see each other.
Okay, since you promised, I'm going to hold you to that. I think we have a couple of questions, April. Yeah, you probably can't see it on your.
Unfortunately, I cannot.
Okay, but it says, "Do you believe in term limits?"
So that's a mixed bag. One problem with term limits is play until they don't serve the best interests of their constituents and they don't work towards the good. But I'll tell you, that's sort of like a pro and con. But for me, I say there are term limits, and term limits are enforced by the voters. The voters determine how long one serves. And so if a person is not doing what the voters believe that individual ought to be doing, then they can cut his term whenever they decide. So although there are no term limits by law, there is term limits that can be invoked by the voters.
Yeah, I guess I have to go along with that explanation. You have another question coming up there for you. What strategies are in place by our political leaders to ensure our community votes in November? Just to make sure that they're going to be voting in November.
Well, I will tell you, the Senate Democratic caucus point, we're going all over the state, differing the message about how important this election is. We're going all over the state, listening to what people believe we ought to do, how they believe government ought to be working to serve our citizenry better. And so from the Democratic caucus standpoint, we're going to be going all around the state. It's my hope that we're able to develop what we call a small donor program in order that we might be able to communicate with those persons who want to tune in with us a little bit better. And so we are trying to organize that. In fact, I'm taking the lead on quite a bit of it as the assistant minority leader. It's one of the things that I've been tasked with. But we intend to carry this message all over the state. And our hope is that as we travel, others will spread what I call the good news. And that is that there is absolute hope in our efforts to be able to gain more seats that are reflective of our population.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Well said. Another question was that based on the decision last week, was it a real win, or is there a way that this can be revisited that would affect the November election?
So I don't believe that there's anything they can do to affect the November election. And so to that end, it's an absolute win.
Okay. Yeah.
I do believe that we will see redistricting in the not too distant future.
Yeah. We just got to prepare. Man, this has really been an education for me. Okay, I admit that I have deficiencies in civic knowledge sometimes, and I don't know about everybody. I can't speak for everybody else, but I recognize that in myself, and I'm so glad that you came on or you were willing to come on to kind of give us more knowledge on that, especially the issue of redistricting. This couldn't have been a better opportune time for this. Man.
Well, I'm happy to do it, and like I say, anytime I accommodate you and your listeners, I'm happy to do that as well.
Okay, all right. So, April, do you have any remarks? Okay,
I think it was a great interview. Thank you, Senator Sabb, for being here.
Yes, and you're asking April, and she's saying something. Go ahead, April.
I said I think it was a great interview. Thank you, Senator Sabb, for being here.
Did you hear her, Senator Sabb?
No, I can't hear you.
Okay.
Brother Ed, why don't you just relay to him what I said? Because it'll probably be hard for him to hear. Okay, now we can't hear you. Now we can't hear you. You hit something, there was like a boom, and then you went out. We can't hear you, Brother Edward. Uh-oh. Did you hit a mute button or anything? Okay, so I don't know what happened. Okay, now we can hear you. Mm-hmm.
Oh, okay, now you can hear. Okay, we're good. We're good to go. Yeah. So thank you again. And again, let me just reiterate what April said. She was showing her appreciation to you for coming on the program.
Sure.
And the next time it'll be different.
Hopefully the technology will work for us.
That's right. It will. It will. So, and again, thank you so much, and Godspeed on your in many endeavors. I'm glad to hear that you all are going around the state, by the way,
Yes,
doing what you're doing. I'm sure that
to near you. So all of you folks who have listeners and stuff, we want you to put the word out there.
Fantastic. Okay. All right. So until we talk again, Senator, thank you so much.
All right, man. Take care.
Godspeed.
All right, we'll see you. Bye.
Well, we did our best. That was great. I thought that was a great interview. And thank you, April, for working behind the scenes and getting all these people across our screen to let our audience know what the comments are and who's commenting. So I appreciate that. There were quite a few, by the way. So, April, do you have any announcements?
The only thing that we need to remind people of is that we do have our summer jobs program kickoff coming up Saturday, June 20th, and the registrations are now open for the Youth Summer Jobs program, which this year, as last year, is an employability 101 course. So there's still time to sign up, and we would like for any potential students to sign up by the beginning of next week so that we can prepare for our June 20th kickoff. There are 20 seats available in this program, and it's a career prep course, and students will learn a number of different things regarding topics that kind of lean into not only career exploration and preparation, but also life skills. So sign up for that. At the end of the program in August, there will be a closing ceremony, and students will receive a monetary reward for their participation and also a certificate of completion. I also need to announce that the Reading Roots Summer Literacy Program, founded and coordinated by Marjorie McIver, is now at capacity. So registration is closed for the Reading Roots Summer Literacy Program. So we'd like to thank all of the parents who signed up their students ages 6 to 18 to be a part of this literacy program. We can formulate a waiting list. It doesn't mean that we're going to have a second session or a second cohort for that Reading Roots program, but just in case somebody has to exit the program before it begins, we'll be able to go to that wait list and see if there's anyone else we can add. That program also has 20 seats maximum. So if you want more information, just go to the WCMmagazine.net website and click on the summer programs in the menu, and you will find information about both. So we just want to thank everyone, and please make sure that you share this information. Again, we would like to host 20 students in the summer employability course this summer, and we are tracking to actually meet that goal, but we want you to make sure you spread the word. And that particular program is for our teens ages 14 to 18. They can earn a little money to get them ready for school next year, and also pick up some very valuable skills, as well as have some wonderful on-the-job shadowing or training before the program ends. So if you're interested, please visit the website. And that's all I have for the Edward. Priscilla Fuller says, don't
Okay,
forget.
I have another announcement.
Yeah, Priscilla Fuller says, don't forget about the 107th.
That's what I was about to say.
Okay. All right. Okay.
Yeah, go ahead.
I think there's a delay on your end, Brother Edward.
Did you get it up on the screen or?
I don't have anything
Delay.
for it.
Okay. It's the it's the 107th anniversary of St. Elizabeth Missionary Baptist Church in Ana. I think it's June 6th and 7th, I believe. And they're celebrating. And if she has any more information, she can certainly just send us a chat or put it up or in comments, okay? But Ms. Priscilla Fuller asked us to announce that, and that's a milestone, 107 years, 107th anniversary. Wow, really a milestone. And congratulations to Reverend Dr. Fields, who was the pastor of that church in Ana. And, Godspeed. Hopefully that you all can attend. Okay. That's all I have.
All right. Well, we just thank everyone for joining us tonight from near and far. We appreciate you being a part of the conversation this evening. And if you have any other topics that you would like for us to cover, or guests that we can invite to the show, please let us know. Also, if you have any community announcements, if you could submit those announcements prior to the show, it will help us to get everything organized, and we'll be sure to read your community announcement on the show so that everybody can know what's going on around the area. And again, we thank you all for joining us tonight. This broadcast will be available for the next week on wcmagazine.net. Of course, it's across our Facebook pages. So if you're on my page or World Community Magazine, or you see it, please be sure to share it. This is wonderful information that we need to share, and we appreciate your support as always of our little community show. So thank you so much for being with us tonight.
Godspeed. This was a great informational show this evening, as always. All of them are, but just had to reiterate that. Thank you all, and have a good evening.
Have a good evening.
See you next week, God willing.
Thank you for watching the World Community Magazine's Hour of Power Live on Facebook.